Hey guys, it's Throttle On, and today we're talking about how to ride your first motorcycle. Hey guys, so this is the tutorial on how to ride a motorcycle. So first we're going to go over the controls. Right here is your front brake. Down here is your back brake. This is your kill switch. This is your ignition start. And then over here, you're gonna have your clutch, your shifter, your brights, your horn, and your blinkers. And then on this side, you're also gonna have your throttle. And then this is the ignition. Okay, so first off, with learning how to ride a bike, you're going to want to go to a parking lot or somewhere where there won't be any other cars or anything that you could possibly hit that would damage anything, because you never know what's gonna happen. So first thing we're gonna go over is how to start your motorcycle. So you go ahead and get on, turn your key on. You wanna make sure you're in neutral. The green. And you turn on your kill switch, you pull in your clutch, and then you're gonna hit this switch right here. And then the bike's on. First off, what you're gonna need to do to be able to shift down into first to get going or get moving is put up your kickstand. Because it's a safety feature where if you have your kickstand down and you go ahead and go into first, it's just going to automatically kill the bike, because it's not really a good idea to go driving around with your kickstand down. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to take our foot right here, we're going to roll it forward sort of and shift down into first. We know we're off of neutral because the green light's off right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to find our throttle is on our right side and our clutch, which is on our left side. We're going to hold in the clutch and touch the throttle just to feel it. Alright? So now what you're going to do is you're going to slowly let out on the clutch and slowly pull back the throttle until you start to feel yourself moving. One thing you want to make sure you don't do is let the clutch out all the way, because here, I'll show you what happens. So you're just going to jolt forward, and it's not really that fun. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to let this out very, very slowly when you start off, because you need to figure out how to balance the amount of throttle you put into it and how fast you let out the clutch. So like for this bike, it would be something like this to get going. Alright, so now we're going to start talking about our friction zone and sort of how you can figure that out. So what the friction zone is when you start to feel the bike get going because of how much you've let out the clutch. So a good thing to do is to start letting it out and pulling a little bit of throttle until you figure it out, and then you can start walking with it. So make sure you hold the clutch here and don't let it go after you've done that. Another thing is, depending on what bike you have, you may not even have to give it throttle for it to get going forward. Like I can let this out some, and it'll start to lurch forward a little bit, but it just won't go anywhere real quick. Another thing that you must absolutely not forget when starting to ride your bike is that your brake is right here. Don't panic and let out the clutch, pull it in, whatever you're trying to do on this side. Remember, your brake is on your right, and it's the lever you pull in. I mean, yes, there's another brake, but at this point, you're probably not going to be getting your feet up too much. So again, you're just going to want to easily let out that clutch and pull that throttle until you get going. And to stop the bike, so once you get going or whatever, you're going to want to pull in the clutch. You cannot let it out at this point either, because the bike will die. So you just keep going, right? And then when you want to stop, pull in the clutch, pull the brake, and you'll stop really quick. Another thing is, make sure you don't pull in that brake unless obviously there's an emergency and you need to stop quick. make sure you ease in that brake, because it's 70% of your power is coming from that front brake within your braking system. So if I'm gonna pull this really hard, this is what's gonna happen. You're gonna you're gonna come to a very quick stop, and that can be dangerous if you're not prepared for it. And the tire can turn if you don't have ABS especially, and you'll most likely fall. All right, so now we're gonna kind of go through that whole process again and just sort of show what you should do to sort of figure out how to ride your motorcycle for the first time. So you're gonna get on, you're going to put up your kickstand, you're going to make sure your kill switch is on, you're going to make sure your key is turned on, make sure you are in neutral, you can tell by that green light, make sure you pull in the clutch, just in case something happens, because sometimes it doesn't always really shift in very well, and then go ahead and turn it on. All right, now that you're at this point, go ahead and rock it forward a little bit and shift into first. And you're going to want to start walking your bike. We're going to focus on walking your bike for 20-30 feet and then practice slow braking after you're done. So you're going to let out that clutch a little bit, pull in that throttle, and let the bike do the work for you. So you're just going to be slowly walking. Make sure it's a controlled movement. You can always pull in the clutch if you want to stop. So once you've gone for a little ways, you're going to want to practice slow braking. So you're going to pull in that clutch and give it a gentle squeeze on your right lever for your front brake. So we're walking it around. And we're going to pull in that brake. All right, you're going to want to do this a couple of times. Just to show you again what this looks like. And again, remember, you can pull this throttle as hard as you want. It's not going to go anywhere as long as you have this clutch lever in. Nothing's going to happen. And always remember, right front lever is your brake. And then once you feel like you've kind of got this figured out, what you can start doing next is you can go ahead and start letting that clutch lever out more. And then once you feel like you can put your feet up, you can go ahead and do that. Alright, so once you feel like you've kind of got the process of walking your bike around with the gentle stop at the end, you can go ahead and start off very slowly trying to put your feet up to 10 or 30 feet or whatever you're practicing with right now. So you go ahead and start off slowly, keep letting out the clutch until you're all the way out, and then you want to practice that gentle stop at the end. Just make sure it's a very slow, not abrupt. You really want to focus on having a good stop, that way you don't get thrown off. So once you kind of got that figured out, driving in a straight line, you probably want to start practicing your curves. So you want to find like a parking lot where you can sort of get in the groove with that. I found myself a little track right here. And this is a point where you can start using your back brake too. But you really want to just focus on trying to get a little bit of lean, just so you're not afraid of it. At this point, you really want to make sure that you're staying in first. The main thing is though, is you kind of want to get that whole launch thing figured out before you start driving around the parking lot, because if you don't have your launch down, then you're really not going to be able to move around a whole lot. Okay, so once you get this figured out, we're going to go ahead and talk about shifting. Okay, so we're going to talk about shifting now. So to start shifting, you're going to want to be in first gear, and you can kind of feel it right now. Go ahead and pull in your clutch, and then go all the way up. You're going to pass neutral, but you shouldn't stick in it if you're pulling up hard enough. And you're going to go back down, starting to first, right? So in between the process of going from first to second, you have to, because the clutch will be let out because you'll obviously be driving, you're going to have to pull the clutch in, release the throttle, and then once you've shifted up, you're going to let out the clutch and pull in the throttle. So I'll show you what that looks like. So we're in first right now. We're going to get going. So like right about now I need a shift, so I'm going to go. And then we're good. And again. Major question is, how do you know when to shift? One way you can tell when you need to shift is when the bike starts hitting the top of the rev range. And you'll probably just feel it. Once you get comfortable with the bike you're on, you'll just know when you need to shift. I can show. So, if you go ahead and get going, right about now you'd want to. You hear that noise, the change? You can sort of just start to feel it and hear it once you get comfortable with the bike you're on of when you need to shift. But for now, it might be a good idea to look at your RPMs because it's easier. Okay, so now we're going to start talking about downshifting. Now, downshifting is obviously very useful when you're in a higher gear and then you need to come to a stop, like at a stop sign, stoplight, whatever. So to do that, okay, so let's say I'm in second. What you're going to do is you're going to pull in your clutch, shift down, and when you come back to the throttle, unlike when you shift up, you're going to not pull on as much throttle. And another thing with this is you need to make sure that you have slowed down prior to downshifting. Because if you're just going to downshift, you're going to rev your RPMs way too much and it's not going to be very good for the bike. So, here's an example of that. So we're going to start off in first, second, and then go back down to first. So we're going to go here, go back into second, and the downshift you're going to want to slow down, downshift, and then you can let out. So why you do need to downshift is because, like, let's say you start off from a stoplight or something in like third or fourth gear or even fifth, your bike will just putter out. It will not move anymore because it's just in way too high of a gear. In fact, I've done that before. I didn't realize I was like in fifth. I had stopped and I tried to start again and I thought I was out of gas just because my bike completely stopped. You always want to make sure you downshift into first gear when coming into a stop. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some more tips on braking. So what you want to make sure you are doing, I didn't do this for a long time, I guess, because I just kind of forgot it was there, but you want to use your back brake. It really is helpful, especially on a motorcycle where you don't have ABS. You really want to get into the habit of using your back brake when stopping. Here, this is 70% of your braking power is coming from this front brake. So if you're going to throw that on, you're going to come to a very abrupt sort of halt. It's not going to be a nice gentle stop like you just saw. It's going to be literally, you're going to fly forward and just hope you don't fall off. Another thing that you need to be aware of is if you're driving and you're coming to a stop, so you're going pretty slow and you throw on that front brake too hard, sometimes your wheel can turn to one side and you'll fall off. That's the end of it right there. You're going to fall. So again, what you're going to want to do to stop is you're going to want to use a combination of your back and front brake. So you're going to pull in that clutch, start putting on that back brake, and just ever so lightly feather that front. So another thing you need to be aware of is what happens when you use your back brake too quick. Like your back tire will skid out, especially if you don't have ABS. It's kind of a cute stop. But in an emergency, I would say it could be better sometimes to use your back brake. But this takes a lot of practice to perfect sort of what you need to do to be able to figure this out. All right, again, it's Throttle On. I'm Molly, and that was how to ride your first motorcycle. But again, keep practicing those slow maneuvers, keep practicing everything else we talked about in the video, and make sure you take the motorcycle safety course because I'm no expert. I don't know. But make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel.